Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into a massive geographical puzzle. How did one of the most fragmented places on Earth forge such a remarkably unified civilization? Usually when we look at global history, it's those giant unbroken landmasses that birth unified nations, right? But the story of the Indonesian people throws that logic right out the window. We're going to explore the deep history, the intense geographic realities, and this absolutely incredible cultural synthesis that basically built a singular identity out of a totally shattered landscape. To really wrap our heads around the story, we first have to grasp the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the landscape. We're talking about over 17,000 islands scattered right across the equator. Just imagine a finely scattered necklace stretching over 5,000 kilometers. That is literally the distance from the Indian Ocean all the way to the Pacific. It's this vast, epic jigsaw puzzle of land that acts as a bridge between the Asian and Australian continents. And within these islands, you've got everything from impenetrable cloud forests in Papua to rolling savannas in Timor, down to the incredibly dense, humid rainforests of Sumatra.
And across those islands, there are a staggering 700 living languages spoken today. 700! That sets up the ultimate historical paradox. You've got over 300 distinct ethnic groups, from the Javanese and Balinese to the Bugis of Sulawesi and the Dani of Papua. Historically speaking, mountain chains, thick forests, and some seriously hazardous seas could have easily kept all these communities permanently isolated. But they didn't. Instead, they somehow forged a collective memory and a shared civilization. So, how on earth did they do it?
Part 1. Forged by Fire and Sea, the Geographic Canvas. Well, Indonesia sits squarely on the Ring of Fire. We are looking at a volatile landscape violently pushed upward by massive tectonic plates. It's home to legendary explosive volcanoes like Krakatoa and Merapi. But, and here's the fascinating part, this violent geology was actually a massive double-edged sword. Yes, it constantly threatened early communities, but it also nourished them with literally the most nutrient-rich volcanic ash on the entire planet. This extraordinary fertility, especially on islands like Java and Bali, was a game-changer. It allowed for intensive wet rice agriculture. And you know how the story goes. When you have abundant food, you get dense populations, complex social hierarchies, and eventually some seriously powerful kingdoms. So, out of this highly fragmented, incredibly dangerous landscape emerged a core guiding philosophy of unity, one that anchors the entire Indonesian story. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. It translates to unity in diversity, and it isn't just some catchy modern political slogan. No, it's the historical survival strategy of the whole archipelago. The sheer geography of the place practically forced these wildly diverse peoples to interact, trade, and adapt to one another. The environment demanded a level of resilience and a capacity for coexistence that basically became baked right into the cultural DNA of the region.
Let's move into Part 2, the first great migrations, traversing prehistory.
Our timeline starts way back, about 1.8 million years ago with Homo erectus, famously known as Java Man. But if we look at our direct ancestors, modern humans, they arrived roughly 45,000 years ago. And they left behind some of the world's absolute oldest figurative art. We're talking breathtaking hand stencils deep in the Maros caves of Sulawesi. But the real game changer? That happens about 4,000 years ago with what we called the Austronesian expansion. These seafaring migrants originated up near Taiwan and essentially swept southward. They brought domesticated pigs, chickens, and, crucially, the cultivation of rice and some seriously advanced boat-building techniques. Now, to really grasp this era, we have to completely rethink the water. The ocean wasn't a barrier, not at all. It was actually a bustling maritime highway that enabled a vast network of early, localized societies. The Austronesians were arguably the world's first true water people. Using these brilliant double outrigger canoes, they navigated by the stars and transformed the archipelago's scattered islands into a highly interconnected web of trade and kinship. They introduced the whole concept of the village, or desa, along with customary law known as ada. And it's exactly this incredible maritime mobility that laid the foundational groundwork for Indonesia to become a massive global hub.
Part 3. Crossroads of the World, the Early Kingdoms.
Okay, so as these maritime skills advanced, a booming global spice trade started drawing merchants from India, China, and the Arab world, injecting just immense wealth and entirely new ideas into the islands. Think about it. Back then, if you wanted cloves, nutmeg, or mace, you absolutely had to go to the fabled spice islands of Indonesia. There was literally nowhere else on Earth to get them. That exclusivity drew the entire known world directly to their shores. And with this massive influx of foreign merchants came new technologies, totally new languages, and, most profoundly, new religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. Now, all of this immense wealth basically created two very distinct types of power in the region. You had the sea-based trading empire of Srivijaya, and then you had the land-based temple-building courts of Java. Srivijaya, which rose up in the 7th century, was a true thalassocracy, meaning an empire of the sea. By controlling the super-vital Strait of Malacca, they heavily taxed passing ships and grew into a massively wealthy center of Buddhist learning. Meanwhile, over on the island of Java, dynasties like the Sailendra and Sanjaya took a totally different route. They used the incredible agricultural wealth generated by that rich volcanic soil to build monumental stone temples. We're talking about the breathtaking Buddhist stupa of Borobudur and the towering Hindu complex of Prambanan.
But look at the incredible syncretism happening here. The locals didn't just copy and paste foreign religions, they carefully wove them right into their existing tapestry of beliefs to create something entirely new. Sure, the elites eagerly adopted Indian concepts of divine kingship to legitimize their own rule, but everyday people? They certainly didn't abandon their old gods. They just layered the new ones on top. So an ancient local volcano spirit might suddenly become associated with the Hindu god Shiva. Or take the grand Indian epics, like the Ramayana. They weren't just translated, they were fundamentally transformed into local settings and performed through traditional Wayang Kulit, which is Javanese shadow puppet theater. It was an absolute masterclass in cultural adaptation.
Which brings us to Part 4, the Majapahit Empire's Golden Age, the pinnacle of pre-colonial unity.
Rising straight from the ashes of conflict, the origin story of the Majapahit Empire is just wild. Back in 1293, a Javanese prince named Raden Wijaya pulled off this brilliant, honestly ruthless double-cross. He actually teamed up with invading Mongol forces to crush his own local rivals. Then, the very second the dust settled, he turned right around, kicked those same Mongols completely out of Java, and founded an empire. I mean, wow. It was an insanely audacious geopolitical maneuver that somehow harnessed both Java's agricultural bounty and the archipelago's maritime trade routes, setting the ultimate stage for a golden age. That fierce, incredible ambition is captured perfectly by Gajah Mada. He was this visionary prime minister who really drove Majapahit's massive expansion. He actually swore a dramatic oath, the Sumpah Palapa, vowing not to rest until he had successfully united the diverse islands of the Nusantara into one single sphere of influence. And through a brilliant mix of shrewd diplomacy, overwhelming naval strength, and very strategic alliances, he actually pulled it off, forging a network of tributary states extending far beyond Java. But this era wasn't just about military might, not at all. It was a true cultural renaissance where art, diplomacy, and this core idea of a unified Nusantara really flourished. Their capital city at Trawalan was this bustling, incredibly cosmopolitan metropolis where international merchants just mingled every single day. They built a highly organized bureaucracy and produced stunning works of literature, like the epic poem Nagakretagama. Now, what really made Majapahit so successful was its federative model. It didn't try to micromanage every single island. It demanded tribute and loyalty, sure, but it allowed local rulers to completely maintain their own customs. It was basically a very early, very practical application of unity and diversity. Eventually, as Majapahit's centralized power started to wane, the cultural tapestry simply did what it always does. It absorbed its next layer. This time, it was the peaceful, trade-driven spread of Islam. You see, unlike in many other parts of the world, Islam was not introduced to Indonesia by the sword. It literally arrived on the trade winds. Muslim merchants from Arabia, Persia, and India settled down in the coastal ports. And Sufi mystics, whose deeply spiritual approach just resonated perfectly with existing Javanese mystical traditions, played a huge role here. Local rulers converted to secure powerful trade alliances, and new mosques were built right alongside ancient temples. The civilization didn't collapse, it just gracefully evolved once again, creating the uniquely pluralistic Islamic society that defines so much of Indonesia today.
So I'll leave you with this thought to ponder today. When your entire history is built on synthesizing the world's extreme diversity into one single identity, what unique strengths does that actually give you? The Indonesian people have spent thousands of years taking the ideas, the religions, and the commerce of the entire world and seamlessly weaving them into something distinctively their own. In an era where globalization so often causes fracture and division, Indonesia's deep-rooted mastery of unity and diversity isn't just some interesting historical footnote. It just might be the ultimate blueprint for navigating our future. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.